What's up, investors? What up, traders? Ken here from Dyslexic Investor, and we're going to be looking at the overall airline industry. Once again, we did a video about 2 or 3 weeks ago discussing about different airline stocks that I'm looking at and buying, and we did end up purchasing some, unfortunately, United Airlines at around, I believe it was like $30, $35 in around that area. Of course, it's kind of made a comeback, but it was substantially lower than that previously to us buying in. I think we bought it, maybe it was around 37, and it basically went down to like 20. But it's making a slow but steady comeback from here. That being said, wanted to kind of talk about the overall airline industry, especially in the U.S. The four ones that we're going to basically cover here is going to be Delta, American, United, and Southwest. I love JetBlue as well, and I like Alaska, great companies. But these are just going to cover the four major ones that you see a lot in the headlines. So what you're seeing a lot in the headlines is the bailout, which Washington doesn't want to use the word bailout because it just seems kind of not sexy. I don't know, but basically it's what it is. They're giving him a stimulus package, but what we've learned from the last time we gave big corporations a lot of money, instead of paying their executives nice bonuses or not giving it to the frontline staff or using the money strategically and not basically purchasing their own shares and doing buybacks, there's going to be some restrictions on what the money can be used for. Because again, this is taxpayer money. So a U.S. citizen paying taxes to the federal government, that money is going to these companies now. So that being said, like, what the hell? How are they going to be able to use that money, and what parameters are they going to put around it? So I'm going to give you some numbers here. So the U.S. Airlines employ about 750,000 employees here in the United States. Okay, and that's a huge chunk of a lot of unemployment. So just basically, all the airlines have grounded about 600 planes. I don't know the full breakdown on how many planes are currently active, but then it should have furloughed employees. 60,000 employees here, and then 40,000 here. This is basically slowing down the frontline staff that man these airplanes, that take care of it, everything from the luggage to the ticketing to actually serving your drink and so forth. A lot of negative stuff was coming out because a lot of these companies, if you're not familiar with what a buyback is, so individuals who do a buyback, so companies buy their own stock. So here's the weird metric that a lot of people are ticked off about. If you're, we're just going to do straight Delta. So if you're Delta Airlines and your stock is, let's pull up Delta here real fast. Your stock is basically at $26 today. And you, instead of reinvesting the how many billion they're going to get, probably 3 to 5 billion, back into the business, they would be purchasing their own shares and then giving those shares to the executives. Basically instead of getting a salary increase for a lot of executives over time, they basically give them as stock, of giving them ownership in the company and giving them stock. But at the same time, the people who are dictating the stock prices and the buyback for the board and the executive staff are the top management. So of course they want that buyback to be as high as possible because they have a huge incentive of having a lot of stock on hand. Instead of getting a 100K bonus, they're getting 100K in Delta stock. And if they can make that stock go from $26 to $35, that's substantially better than getting a 100K. So they're able to boost up their own gains. And it's kind of it's really wrong. And especially, it's okay if you want to run your business like that, but once you start taking tax money from the everyday American, then you can't do that shit. You can't. There's no I'm sorry, there's a line there. You can't take your money, so I'm gonna better pay for your bonus or something. And then this is exactly what happened in 08, 09 with a lot of the TARP stuff that came out on analyzing people giving them money for a lot of banks, and just basically ended up in the wrong hands and not helping the frontline employees that are basically being furloughed, not being able to handle, make their paychecks and their mortgages, things like that. There's a lot of things that need to happen here for the frontline employees and all the different various individuals, not just in the airline, the restaurant, and things like that. I'm just talking about airlines today. There is a mass amount of money that needs to help out a lot of these people due to this pandemic here. A lot of the stuff is saying that it's about going to be at $2 trillion. I think it's going to be substantially higher, honestly, probably closer to $3 trillion. And this is basically going to help a lot of individuals. I'm hoping that it pushes out, allowing individuals from the frontline workers, not just in the restaurants, the airlines, a lot of the front-facing service industry on being able to get the relief they need due to this absolutely terrible pandemic that's happened, and it has nothing to do with anything that they did wrong. It's just a very bad situation, and the government needs to step in and kind of help those individuals out. This is actually breaking down here, and later in the article is saying that $25.6 billion of net debt of Fort Worth. Basically showing this is the buybacks of their fat years of putting in billions of dollars, and then on top of creating a negative cash flow. So let's say I made 38 billion or 50 billion in a year, but then I bought stock back for 52 billion. That's inflating the price of the stock, but in the long run, it's not going to be sustainable. And they're super fragile. It's basically, they could not weather a downturn. They're seeing cuts of 40-50% of decline in revenue in just in a week, and potentially will steepen the longer this goes on, because a lot of flights just internal, like in the United States, have been canceled. Like, it's not happening. Multiple countries have just shut down their borders. Like, nope, we're on quarantine for X amount of days. It's not happening. Or weeks. So let's go ahead and jump into each of the charts here. We're gonna, again, I'm more of the technical side of things. I like to look at the overall fundamentals of how this is being driven, and I just wanted to give my take on these individual stocks and companies on trying to get a better perspective on what a bailout really is and what Washington and the company CEOs are saying and so forth. So that being said, that was my little bit on that. So let's go ahead and jump into the charts. So we've already kind of looked at Delta. So this is on a daily chart. You see here, it basically crashed through all our price targets. Basically, we had it around like 32. It came crashing through that. It kind of had a kind of a bounce again. This is due to the Senate and the House are coming kind of close on a potential stimulus or a overall package for bailing them out and helping, hopefully, the frontline employees again. So that is, again, it's a nice little bounce here. If we go further out to a weekly chart, it did hit oversold on the RSI. Momentum is starting to kick up here a little bit. On the daily chart, it has just been beaten up. If the companies do take, or the bailouts do happen, it's not the government starts owning the airline stocks. It's not a full-on bailout like that. It is basically, hey, we're going to give you $1 billion. You have to spend that $1 billion XYZ way, and you have to pay it back in X amount of time. But it's going to be super low interest due to the interest rates being crazy low. Nothing else really to report on the stance. We can kind of pop this out on wrong chart. Pop this out on a monthly chart and really see how low we actually got. We're looking at basically prices in 2013, which is absolutely insane, being priced that low. and being cut that low, which we honestly saw on the cruise line stocks. But the sad thing is a lot of this airfare is basically somewhat of essential. It's not like a cruise line is not really essential. It's more like a luxury vacation thing. Airlines are needed for creating commerce, creating business, and keeping things flowing. So that's why they're more skewed to help them. Okay, so that was Delta. So we're going to look at American Airlines next. So that's AAL. Let's pipe that in here. Again, all these charts are going to kind of look honestly the same in the sense of how far they've come off and just kind of made a bounce. AAL has already been trading fairly terrible, as like we said in the previous video. It's been below the 200-day on the daily chart for quite some time. It has not. Oh, this is on the weekly. Let's go to the weekly here. It has hit the weekly oversold as well, of course, bouncing, and we're looking at crazy low prices. So AAL kind of was restructured, so there hasn't been too much information. It's only been trading since like 14. Let's go back on a monthly. Yeah, so it's kind of been restructured, and it's basically trading at an all-time low when it was hit $10. Again, none of these stocks I'm really jumping at or buying. Like I said, I own the United Airlines, which we'll look up here next, position here as in my portfolio. Not my proudest moment, but I didn't buy the cruise lines like some folks did. Like I know those guys got crushed. You kind of see here I have my price target here at 43. I would like to get out at this price. It's going to basically be a small pinch of a profit because again, I just looked it up. We bought around 38 and like 35, and of course it went down to $17. Like that was the day I did not want to look at that position because that was just straight nasty. And we punch this out to a daily chart, we see a lot of RSI oversold. So that initial first, actually second or third time oversold around the $36, $35 price, we wanted to purchase here. And seeing an overall level, I didn't mean to zoom in there, overall level to potentially add to the position. But I didn't want to average too much down because I actually focused a lot of my capital to BA instead. I just wanted to play the overall space that just trying to pick a particular airline company that I like my favorite. So, long story short, the overall for me is I'm long BA, super long term, 5+ years. We'll go into that actually as a little friendly at the end. And another one that I did like as well, which I did purchase a couple shares in and did get out fairly quick after it dropped, was Love. It was basically got in pretty early, and then after this initial drop, and it hit the overall sold on the RSI, and then kind of traded sideways, and then dipped below like 42, 43, and got out pretty fast due to the fact of just getting scared, and just seeing the overall pandemic just working its way through everything, and just getting super scared, honestly, and not being able to hold that position for quite any longer. On the monthly chart, again, we got down to prices in basically 14. It wasn't as hit as a lot of hard as other companies, but it has seen a significant cut in its stock price. It's basically at 50%, which a lot of them hit like 65, 75%. At the lows, a lot of them got hit by 80%. This one's actually interesting. This is still in a very super tight squeeze. This potentially could work out to potentially go lower. Seems a little crazy, but I think there's still some bad news baked in, because it doesn't mean that they're going to get free money, that they're going to be balling and just having a great time. But so the position that I did take and a lot of the capital that I did get out of those positions was to invest in BA. I know that I was a pretty big BA bull initially, way after tragically the airplanes crashed, 2 airplanes crashed, saying that there was a faulty in the new MAX 8 stabilization system. And kind of weathered that. Again, like comparison, like we bought this at around 350, traded in and around, got out about 375, just traded sideways. And then once we saw this action, I was looking to add back into BA, but it just didn't seem, it was way below its 200, which I don't like to add to it. And there's a lot of negative news going about, but then once everything just hit the S hit the F, it just went from $333 basically a month ago all the way down to well below $100 at $89. Again, this is a huge fear too, but in long story short is BA is a company that is too big to fail. They have had a lot of CEO problems up here on basically running basically a crazy lab full of just I don't give a shit and just trying to push out profits and not really caring about the safety and the multiple warnings they had about that particular incidence of the MAX 8. And it was just a huge communication error between so many different departments. And on top of the CEO leaving, not getting a severance, and then the other CEO coming in and basically saying it's a shit show, and it just has been just dropping off terribly. And a lot of people are saying that the government's going to buy in and own this. It doesn't quite work like that. It's going to take, BA is going to bounce back, but it's going to bounce back in a long time frame. Like it's going to take a really long time. So again, we traded down to the lows of again like $89. So we're talking 2013 prices. And you see this huge move up and everything. They're saying they're cutting the dividend. They're saying they're trying to basically cut all various expenses. And once you cut the dividend on a stock that has been paying a nice, stable dividend year over year, it's not a good sign. And this is just shown in the graph here. That's why you see this probably one of the biggest red candles I've seen in a really long time. And it continues to come down to crater, getting slightly of a bounce back. So anything around the 125 level is a potential starter position. I did a starter position around $95 and then added around the $95 and $90 level. That being said, this is going to take a long time to turn around, and hopefully it's going to be paying off 5+ years from today. Guys, thank you so much for watching. This is Ken from the Dyslexic Investor. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you have any questions, please leave in the comment section down below, and I'll get back to you. And you guys have a wonderful day. Peace!